I want to see that smile every day. Could be expected to be the average post from any Tumblr fan account, and maybe that smile is referring to actor Tom Holland or singer Shawn Mendes, but this specific post comes from a Columbiner, young girls who have crushes on Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, the shooters of the Columbine Massacre. On April 20th, 1999, at the Columbine High School in Colorado, 13 people died and 21 more were injured in a school shooting. This event was a turning point in the magnitude of gun violence in schools and how they were covered by the news. In their study of media assailants and the process of framing the coverage of the Columbine shooting, Hassang Irish Choi and Maxwell McCombs point out that this tragedy also attracted the most public interest of any news story of 1999. 68% of Americans followed the shooting very closely, making this event the third most closely followed story of the 1990s. There is now a standard that started with Columbine, then Sandy Hook, then Parkland, and more across the country to what the news portrays of the school shooting. You can picture it. There are pictures and videos of children running out of the school, phone interviews with students inside, and a lot of coverage of the shooters. Framing the story of a school shooter to focus on the perpetrators is what Irish Choi and McCombs calls individual coding, and it is how these fangirls get enough information on Harris and Klebold to form a parasocial relationship. Irish Choi and McCombs' definition of individual coding is when the story focuses on individuals, either the gunmen, victims, their family members, or others, the interaction among them, or descriptions of their acts, reactions, or background information. The background information that Columbiners hold on to is the video journals, called the basement tapes, and written diaries from Harris and Klebold that are relatively easy to find. In these journals is evidence of their personality and mental health issues that led to do what they did. This kind of fandom where girls identify and attach themselves to the Columbine shooters is a subculture of the true crime community. The true crime community is an echo chamber of an obsession for murder and other grotesque kind of stories. Rachel Monroe of The Guardian points out that women make up the majority of readers of true crime books and listeners of true crime podcasts. Women are not just passively consuming these stories, they are also finding ways to participate in them. And participation is exactly what defines the media fragmentation of the fandom for the Columbine shooters. The niche group of Columbiners are users on social networking sites such as Facebook, DeviantArt, and especially Tumblr who post public comments and fan-created texts like sketches, videos, and blogs in honor of the Columbine shooters, while often also fending off remarks from the general public criticizing their fandom, as defined by Andrew Rico of his study of fans of Columbine shooters Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. Sasha Cohen of Vice explains that this phenomenon online to be young women that have essentially repurposed Dylan and Eric, who lack the fresh-paced, tiger beat looks of your average teen heartthrob, into crush-worthy objects of lust. This is what a parasocial relationship is. A media psychology that describes the one-sided pseudo-relationship an audience develops over time with a media persona, or in this case, infamous killers. Rico found in his research, interviewing people who identify themselves as Columbiners, that this study of the connection young people make with each other over our admiration of fandom is relevant because the Columbine fandom, while one of many of its kinds centered on dark public figures, is part of a larger trend of admiring controversial figures that continues to develop over time. A way to stop this kind of admiration is to stop naming mass shooters in news reporting. David Cullen, who researched the Columbine shooting for 10 years for his novel about the event, states the claim that a mass shooting is a performance. Repeating the name of the shooter often makes him a star, in his article for BuzzFeed. In fact, Harris and Klebold anticipated their posthumous stardom. In the basement tapes, Klebold says, "I know we're gonna have followers because we're so effing godlike." What Colin proposes to news organizations, journalists, bloggers, or just Twitter users is for the first 48 hours, use the name of the suspect sparingly. Then, after that, he could be the gunman, the killer, or the perpetrator. That disappears his identity. Having young people admire controversial figures like Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold can have real consequences, because what can first be a crush can lead to a copycat shooter. Most of the fangirls today were born just when the Columbine shooting happened or even after, so the news is the only real educator to those who admire the killers. Until the media takes this initiative, what the public can do is voice concerns about gun violence. One option available is to join a chapter of the organization March for Our Lives. Started by a group of students after the Parkland school shooting, they work to register voters and bring awareness of gun violence through marches across the country. No student should have to be afraid to go to school, and admiring killers like Klebold and Harris can be a dangerous tool to keep that fear alive.